First thing I'd like to do is I move that we repeal all property taxes. All those in favor? Aye.
Deja vu all over again.
Huh? Mr.
So in 2024, 2.19% of power was generated by hydroelectric. And this is in Wyoming, as a percentage of total Wyoming generation. So 2.19% was hydroelectric, 22.74% was wind energy, 1.03% was utility level solar, 13.29% was natural gas, and 59.56% was coal. And the small scale solar, petroleum, other gases, and all other electricity generation made up less than 1% of total electricity generation.
Can you email those out to the committee?
Yes, sir. And this was sent to the committee about 8 months ago as a follow-up to our August meeting, but I'll go ahead and resend it to everybody.
We're not as young as you. So when you start talking 8 months ago, I don't think I can remember yesterday. And as part of that other electricity generation, hamsters on a wheel. Okay, let's get started with net metering, and we'll start with the Wyoming Public Service Commission.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear? Okay, good afternoon. My name is John Burbridge. I'm Chief Counsel for the Wyoming Public Service Commission. I did have Deputy Chairman Petrie with me, but I just got the message that we were reconvening at 1 o'clock. So I guess my assumption was that we were going to start the conversation with net metering with Senator Case, but I don't know that. So I'm a little bit at a loss as to where to start with this conversation, but I do have a little bit of information available as far as penetration of, we use Rocky Mount Power as an example, about the net metering penetration with their system. And we've determined that the net metering penetration, that they have about 1,200 customers out of 120,000. They're actually about 0.89% net meters penetrated. I guess I'll take questions at this point in time, see if I can answer. I can't hear anybody. Can you grab Randy?
Co-Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. Mr. Burbidge, appreciate that. Now, can you state that again? You said there's approximately 100 net metering customers versus 120,000 or 100 and what were the numbers again, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Locke, the Rocky Mountain Power, and this is just an example because we have the best data on them. They have 120,000 customers. That's our last report on that. Of those, we have 1,200 net meterers. That represents about 0.89% saturation for net meters on their system, and we've put together some figures if we need them here, but that we've put that together figures as using a 1% penetration. And we think that's pretty consistent throughout the state as being representative of the net metering penetration in the electrical system here in Wyoming. Yeah.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for joining us today. My question is, when you talk about 120,000 Rocky Mountain Power customers, do you know how many statewide we have? How many customers for all of the service companies?
I do not have that figure off the top of my head, Representative Lean. My apologies.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While we have you, I would like to ask you about the large load capacity, if you're equipped to talk about it. And if not, that's okay. I'll get with you and we'll get the information. The question I have is, what does the Public Service Commission do to protect the ratepayers from the large load entities that are coming online?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Representative Lean, the commission has approved tariffs with Rocky Mountain Power and Shine Light Fuel and Power, and we ensure that those tariffs are designed so that the cost causer has to pay for any additional costs that would require to do the line extensions and accommodate the power required, and that the customer that is, for instance, in this case, a large load customer, would have to pay for all of that. What we do here is make sure, and it's our policy, and we do the tariff approvals this way to make sure that to the best of our ability, that those costs are not passed on to, for instance, residential customers and what have you. So we really are doing our best efforts to make sure that the cost causer is paying for that.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Along those lines, when it comes to those folks that are net metering, are those billed as capital investments to be able to attach to those folks that are utilizing that? Or does that lie on the person that is an independent power producer?
Chairman, Representative Lean, I'm not sure I understand that question. With regard to net meters, if we're talking like rooftop solar, I don't know how to answer that question. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman. So those,
Follow up?
thank you. Those folks that are participating in net metering, are there capital improvements made by utility companies such as Rocky Mountain Power that are passed on to ratepayers?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Representative Lean, I think I understand. No, the net meters put up their own systems, and generally there's fees associated with hooking up to the system and requirements as far as safety devices that the net meter would pay for. So the other customers are not paying for that hookup cost now. And they do put power back on the system, but there's a true up at the end of the year generally that if what they don't use is for, you know, in a certain month, they could generate a certain amount of power more than they use, that those kilowatt hours roll over to the next month. But at the end of the year, if they have leftover kilowatt hours, that gets paid back to the customer by the utility at the avoided cost rate.
Representative Campbell.
Thank you, sir. I just got a real quick question. Can you give me a definitive answer on what a large load customer is? Because the other day in minerals, I heard anywhere from 25 megawatts to 100 megawatts, and I'd really like to dial that down. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, Representative Campbell. What a large load customer is, I can tell you that in February, we did inquire of Rocky Mountain Power and Black Hills, Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power specifically, as to try to determine how many large load customers there are in the state. And based on 2024 numbers, Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power had one large load customer that exceeded 100 megawatts that constituted about 46% of the load for Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power. Rocky Mountain Power has a customer that has several different meters that would put together would constitute up to 131 megawatts, but they inform me that they rarely go over 70 megawatts. And that would constitute for Rocky Mountain Power, if they were using the 131 megawatts, about 3 to 4% of the consumption on their system. And I would like to take a moment and introduce Deputy Chairman Petrie. He got the message and made it back here, so he is very knowledgeable on these topics as well. So would you like me to turn this over to you, or do you want me to?
Well, I'm not sure I know what question is on the table, so.
Well, right now. So anyway, he is in the room to field any questions as well.
We're on that meter again.
Senator Ride.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I at liberty to ask who that 131 megawatt customer is? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hyde, you can ask, but quite frankly, I don't know. I don't have that information.
Okay, do we have Wyoming Rural Electric Association?
Thank you.
Anything you want to add?
My apologies. No, nothing that I would like to add, but we would stand for additional questions.
Are you also the Wyoming Office of Consumer Advocate?
No.
Mr. Chairman, the Office of Consumer Advocate was here earlier in the day. They might be operating on the 1:30 time.
Okay. Guess we'll move to industry representatives.
Thank you.
Guess we'll talk about the Choice Electric program. Wyoming Public Service Commission. They are?
Yeah, they're.
Oh, they're back.
OCA's back.
What can you tell us about the Wyoming Choice Electric program?
I'll start. This is Chris Petrie. I'm the Deputy Chairman of the Public Service Commission. And if I understand the nature of the topic, that'll be great. And if not, please redirect me. If the idea is to create a system or a mechanism by which Wyoming electricity customers can state and expect to have a response to their preference for a generation source. This is a topic that has been discussed before as sort of a mirror image of what's commonly called a green tags program. And the main issue that we see in allowing that type of customer choice is that it becomes rather difficult, complicated, and burdensome to keep track of the non-energy attributes of a unit of electricity. In the cases where you see this happening in other states, and even here, some of our utilities allow the purchasing of green tags, meaning that the electricity is sourced from renewable generation sources. There are organizations that were established years ago to accredit and track the attributes and ownership of those credits, so that once they're sold or assigned, they're extinguished, and then the supply of those is refreshed by additional generation from those renewable sources. That ends up being quite an undertaking. And so in the past, I think that the commission has included a fairly substantial fiscal impact statement in connection with this sort of an idea. And I would just make the point that it is perhaps a more complex and difficult undertaking than you might imagine.
Co-Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me ask the question this way. Maybe you can describe it. You know, we currently have choice gas as an example. And so maybe you could help us with what the complexities are in the context, understanding that, okay, sure, you're putting some gas down a line, you're putting electrons down a line. Maybe you could help us a little bit in the context of choice gas and how we approach that. That might make it put a little context around it. It would just be helpful if you think you could do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seems that perhaps I got off on the wrong tangent there with what I've just finished saying. But when you were talking about retail choice, essentially what that typically involves is the maintenance of the distribution utility. So you end up with a distribution utility that owns, operates, pays for, and collects rates through the Public Service Commission on the expense and investment associated with the physical system. Then, instead of having that same utility obtain and pass through without markup the commodity. So in the case of choice gas, we're talking about natural gas. If you wanted to think about a similar arrangement with electricity, you just change the commodity. Then you have non-utilities, which are regulated only to the extent that they have to comply with the rules and the tariff governing the program that the utility has established. And those entities then obtain natural gas supply or the rights to it. They solicit and obtain as many customers as they can. And the theory is that maybe they offer some kind of a different attribute, like a guaranteed price for the year, or they have some kind of an index price, or something with a partial fixed rate and a partial indexed rate, something along those lines. They may offer other incentives, but they then compete amongst themselves for the customers, and then they make agreements with the customers, and then the customers get their supply. The system we have now is the choice gas program operated by Black Hills Wyoming Gas in certain of their service territories. And then they deliver that onto the system that's connected to the distribution system, or onto the distribution system through the utility. And then the utility meters, bills, collects, and the choice gas suppliers get paid then through the utility for the commodity that they've supplied. So we don't have a system in Wyoming. They exist, but they're rare, where there are multiple sets of distribution infrastructure, which of course involves a great deal of waste and eyesore and all the rest. Does that help?
Co-Chairman Locke.
Follow up on that. We have, is the problem significantly different than the problem we have with the choice gas? Because we obviously don't have duplicate. I mean, in my case, I have one, my gas infrastructure is a vendor, but I can still buy my gas, if you will, from somebody else. I get, I don't know, multiple choices. And so I guess what I'm really just trying to understand is, I understand that it's a change to what we're doing, obviously, and obviously there's lots of challenges. But I guess I'm really just trying to understand what is the significant difference such that it's not doable or it's doable. I'm just trying to understand the true difference, because in both cases, whether it's electric infrastructure or gas infrastructure, we still have this issue where somebody owns the infrastructure to my house, but I can still buy from another vendor. And so it's the competitive component of that for the actual gas pricing that I'm trying to understand. How is that different for electrical?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Locke, there really is no fundamental difference. You've got a distribution system and you've got a commodity that is delivered to the customer through that. The way that it works now, the public utility passes it on at cost, so there's no profit or markup on that commodity, and then they deliver it to the customer. In the choice gas program, there's a third party called the choice supplier in between the utility and the customer for a good share of the customers. Some customers, many in fact, go ahead and buy their commodity supply through the utility itself, which it's been called various things, a pass-on rate or the cost adjustment rate through time. But fundamentally, there's a distribution system. The utility obtains or produces a supply, passes that on at cost, and earns their return on their investment in the system. So there's basically suppliers competing amongst each other against the utility supply that is at the utility's cost to the customer.
I have a quick question. It seems like the long pole in the tent is there's just not enough electrical vendors available to have a choice, is there? In most places in Wyoming?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, there's no electrical vendors other than the public utilities in the absence of a retail choice program. Going back, and I think it's 25 or 26 years now that the choice gas program has been in operation. And those suppliers just appeared because they were interested in engaging in that supplier role and trying to compete for customers. I think now there are 6 or 7 of them, perhaps. There have been more at times and less at times, but these suppliers don't necessarily have to have a gas field or a pipeline or anything. They can just go out and acquire the gas and ship it. And I believe the same thing could probably be done with electricity.
Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a follow-up to the two co-chairmans' questions, basically. You refer to them as non-utility choice suppliers. Can you give us an example of names? Are they out there? How do they work with the utility? I guess we got a little bit of that, but just give me an example of who the non-utility choice supplier would be. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, one of the original participants, I'll name, is Wyoming Community Gas. That is a joint powers board formed of the governments of I believe at least a dozen small municipalities, and they participate in the program by demonstrating their creditworthiness and their ability to do so, and then their agreement to abide by the supplier code of conduct. That's part of the Black Hills Wyoming gas tariff that created and governs the choice gas program.
Yeah, just another quick follow-up. Sorry to ask this question again, but you just referred to gas suppliers. What about electric non-utilities? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, there are no non-utility retail electric suppliers in Wyoming because there is no retail choice program for electricity. This program that exists in the natural gas sector is there because Kinder Morgan, which was the operator of that system at the time, I believe, applied to the commission for approval of the choice gas program as a non-traditional rate-making mechanism. Or rate mechanism, I should say, not rate-making. Sorry about that. So in other words, it was not imposed by statute or imposed by the commission. This is an application made by the utility for approval of the program.
Is there an appetite out there to get vendors to do this with electricity like we're doing it with gas? Or is it just they're not interested?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, the potential vendors are not really, I don't believe that they were really a driving force necessarily in the origin of the choice gas program. And the commission hasn't received any proposal from an electric utility for a retail choice program, as we did 25 years ago for choice gas.
One quick follow-up is part of the reason the electric program's a little harder to do than the gas is the delivery method, i.e. power lines?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I think conceptually, I don't know that is what makes it any more difficult. There may be additional level or layers of difficulty in trying to make arrangements with generators. As I said, the choice gas suppliers, they don't necessarily have a gas field that they're operating and producing out of. They're buying it from some producer and shipping it. So I think that the architecture would be really not a lot different. However, there may be some additional complications with making agreements with generators and with making arrangements for transmission that would be needed to deliver the power from the generator to the utility. It is a lot more difficult and delicate thing to keep an electrical system in balance than it is perhaps with gas, because as you know, electricity does not lend itself well to storage absent dedicated facilities like batteries or pumped hydroelectric storage or something along those lines. The gas system has to remain balanced as well, but it's not really as delicate.
Thank you. Representative Riggins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. So if I was a choice gas provider and I found myself qualified to perform that business, generally speaking, I'm going to make a take a calculated risk that I can buy a certain amount of gas for a certain price on the open market and then market it out to customers in a region that has the program and rely upon my efficiency in my bartering for that gas and selling it off to make some money, because I'm completely reliant upon the distribution system owned by another company to get it to the customers. That gas is the very same gas that the utility has in its lines all the time. I'm simply buying it. I'll just say buying it from the open market and selling it to their customers potentially. Would that be generally accurate in how that works?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, that is generally correct. The other potential avenue for earning a profit as a supplier, besides relying on your negotiating skill and wits, is that you might package it in a way or market it in a way that allows you to actually command a higher price per unit than the utility gets when it sells its commodity at cost.
I know there's another thing they do too. They'll hedge the price of gas at the beginning of the year. I do it in my store every year. And about 50% of the time I'm right, and the other 50 I'm not. Representative Campbell.
Thank you again for being here, sir. I'm just kind of my concern with a community electric program would be I'm wondering how customer complaints, response to service, things like that would be provided, how that would overlap because they're territorial, where if they did that, and then, how would the service response be on that? Who would be required? I'm sure I'm just wondering how that work or your thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I think that is largely that is not a problem with these programs, including the one that exists in Wyoming, because the utility still maintains the direct relationship with the customer. They operate all the facilities, they send out the bill. The only that throughout the year, the relationship other than marketing exchanges with the choice gas supplier is only the commodity portion of the gas bill. The territory remains within the certificated obligation of the utility, and any complaints would be directed to the utility. If the supplier fails somehow, for example, fails to live up to its agreement to provide the commodity into the utility system as agreed, then the arrangement is that the utility backs that up. So the customer would never know the difference in terms of whether or not gas was reaching their appliances. So we don't really see those kind of complaints. I don't know that there ever been any. The only complaints we've had concerning choice gas suppliers that I can think of had to do with their marketing techniques.
Representative Stivar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back in the, well, been quite a few years ago is when they deregulated the communications. So this has nothing to do with that. Where you had, Lumen or Quest, and then you got like Broadwing or whatever as your phone provider, but the utility still fell under Quest, the infrastructure itself, but you're paying a whole different company. It's nothing like that then, is what I'm gathering.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, that's correct. It's quite different than what was going on in the telecommunications sector.
Well, thank you for your time and testimony. And you gentlemen have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have the Wyoming Office of Consumer Advocate here.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Anthony Ornelas. I'm the administrator of the Wyoming Office of Consumer Advocate. I apologize, did not get the message. So I was a couple minutes late coming back. So,
Oh, we zigged when we should have zagged at lunchtime.
so I will address, if I may, just a couple of thoughts regarding the consumer choice or competitive program that you just heard about from the deputy chairman of the PSC there. Just a couple of things I think that are important is how we currently collect our monthly utility rates. Typically for a residential customer, you have a fixed customer charge or monthly base charge. It's flat, whether you turn on any lights or not throughout the month. And then we have a variable charge, which is a portion of energy and also typically pays for a portion of our infrastructure, the poles, the wires, transformers, and all the fixed assets of that system. If you move to an electric choice program, I think one of the things we would really need to take a hard look at is focusing more on what we call a straight fixed variable rate design, ensuring that all of the fixed costs of the system are collected 100% through that monthly customer charge. These vary utility to utility, and I will say frankly around the nation, most commissions, most folks in this field, they like to have a very low customer charge. The state of Wyoming, my office, and the PSC, we have been moving that up over the years. We believe it's important to collect those fixed charges through a fixed cost that avoids subsidy from high-end users to low-end users and the like. That would also be an important aspect if you went down a consumer electric choice. We would not want to continue to include fixed assets as a energy charge that varies based on your consumption from month to month. So we'd want to put that customer charge appropriately. These are very ballpark numbers, but you might have a utility that's in the $10 to $15 to $20 monthly fixed charge amount today. Collecting all of your fixed costs might move that up to $40, $50, or $60 a month. So it would be somewhat shocking, I guess, at first. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I think it would be an important consideration. The next
Quick
item I'd like,
question for you.
yes, sir.
So I guess I'm gonna use the term maintenance on the lines and everything to kind of simplify it.
Okay.
And we get charged for that, correct? Is that based on usage or is it just a flat fee?
Thank you, Chairman. Could be a little bit of both, but mainly maintenance is going to be more of a variable cost. On some of your generators, we do have selective maintenance schedules, minor maintenance every 4 years, major maintenance every 8 years. So we try to account for those appropriately through your rates. And a lot of those might land a little bit more on the fixed charge aspect. But your standard O&M, your personnel expense that operate and maintain the system, a lot of those will be under a variable category for you.
Co-Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Nels, for coming here and bringing up this issue. So my question is that shock on a conversion, if you were to convert, you're kind of saying that fixed fee component may be kind of take a shocking jump. I think that's what I heard you say. That being said, is that because currently it's just the fact that because it's, for lack of a better term, a controlled monopoly, we're not billing it that way? Is that the real issue? Because I could see it if the issue is, well, because we're sort of a controlled monopoly in the electric space, they don't necessarily take into consideration the fact that the fixed fee infrastructure component is probably not billed that way. I think that's what I'm hearing you say, but I wanted to be sure I understood, because if the concept was they were billing it appropriately in that fixed fee method, the shock I would say, well, why? But your clarification on that would be appreciated, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Locke. Good question. I would say it's not really due to the monopolistic structure of our system. We use a phrase in this industry that is part science, part art. When you get down to how to collect a pot of money from a specific customer class, that's kind of the art piece of it. You can do it through a fixed charge or a variable charge, speaking again for residential, and it's differing reasonable minds could disagree as to where those two bookends should be laid. Historically, I think there was we often thought of low income folks as being low use folks. And so I think there was, at least historically, a desire to set your fixed rate low, thinking then that those folks would not use as much electricity, therefore maybe be subsidized by higher end, maybe more well-to-do individuals. I have never seen any of that empirical data to back that up. In photo of, when we think about our low-income folks, those are less insulated homes, not as high of quality windows, not the same efficiency of your furnace and the like. So we really, from our office, we try to set the recovery to collect as much of the fixed cost that are there, whether you use an electron or not, through that fixed monthly charge. And then the remainder we try to put through the variable kilowatt hour or energy charge. So we also find that has a smoothing effect from month to month on customers' bill. I'm sure we've all seen that in our own bills. Electricity is a good example, where in the summer, it's quite a bit higher when you have that air conditioning cranking all the time versus in the dead of winter when you're not using the same level of air conditioning. By setting those two charges appropriately, it kind of smooths out your charges from one month to the next.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I push back a little bit on this notion that we're doing a good job of collecting fixed costs in a fixed way and variable costs in a variable way. Even under the choice gas program, which many of us have, distribution the fixed costs, some of the fixed costs of distribution is collected on a variable basis. And so there's a $33 fee for some cities. It varies, I think, by city. But then there is also a price on your commodity that collects distribution costs. It's not gas. So we're not perfect about this. When you spill over into the electric area, that's a major reason why net metering causes problems on a system, is because we're still collecting fixed costs of electricity on a per kilowatt hour basis. If we got rid of that, we could go a long ways towards having smoother operation with net metering. But it's pretty hard to tell a person in an apartment that they now have to have a $75 fixed fee. That's the kind of things that politicians push back on, and public service commissions balk at too. So I challenge you a little bit. It's a good goal. It has, and if we can move that way, it would solve a lot of problems, but it's not true right now.
Chairman, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. To Senator Case's point, yeah, my comments were not intended to say that we are doing this exactly right or correct. There are, for a number of reasons, political reasons, just conceptual and visual reasons, but we have been making strides over the year to move a little bit more towards that fixed recovery of fixed charges. A lot of work to go, but point well taken by Senator Case. And then I would note again, that is a major question or debate when you talk about net metering. At least in the state of Wyoming, we pay them back at a retail rate for that kilowatt hour or that electron that they push back to the system. That isn't really reflective of just the energy charge, because it does, to Senator Case's point, often include things like the fixed poles and wires of the system. So it's not an apples to apples. So talking about the net metering, our preference would be moved to an avoided cost, AKA wholesale energy rate versus a retail rate, to kind of make a more fair playing field for those folks that net meter and those that don't. So wanted to note that. Thank you, Senator Case.
Thank you.
Another quick question on net metering. Are there times when you're running a full load and then we feed the solar energy in that you probably don't need at that time? I've heard that before.
Thank you, Chairman. I might ask you to clarify, when we're running a full load, are you talking about the system, the utility itself, and then we're taking net metering and that's not needed?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think there certainly are some times where that situation could occur. Again, I don't necessarily believe it leads to excess energy. Hopefully there's a generation mix or a generator within our stack that the utility that can, what we call, ramp down or derate. So as they're taking electrons from a residential or commercial net metering system, they therefore avoid the need for that same energy from a different source. I don't have a comparison to show that it's more economic or less economic, but certainly that's how it would kind of operate for us.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Case.
Yeah, I agree with this analysis, but if you think about it, net metering is compensated at a retail rate. I guarantee you that rate is higher than the cost of electricity from any commercial source in the dispatch order, including, large scale solar would be maybe 10 times less. So you kind of have to buy something expensive and back off something that's cheaper. It's the nature of the game at that point.
Chairman, thank you, Senator Case. That is correct. That was my last comment there about we pay at a retail versus a wholesale, or what we call avoided cost rate. So it is a bit of a disadvantage for non-net metering customers, because the net metering customers are getting compensated both for the electrons and what also reflects a portion of the poles and wires or the fixed aspects of the system.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll open it up to public comment on net metering and choice electric program, if anybody has any comments.
100%. Oh, here he is.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, David Bush with Black Hills Energy. Apologies, I also didn't catch the memo on lunch, so I walked in a little late, but the discussion around the Choice Electric bill, the way that we read that bill is it would be not a customer choices and a deregulation where you have several different providers. It was the energy source bill where you would choose whether you wanted coal, gas, renewables, whatever. If I misunderstood that, I apologize, but
I think we've done both of those
okay.
because we don't want our green electrons mixing with the brown electrons, because then you'll get beige electrons.
Electrifying.
Point taken, Mr. Chairman. So deregulation is a much bigger topic. We went through this a couple of years ago with I believe the Minerals Committee. Senator Case can correct me. I don't know if corporations also went through deregulation, but I mean, big picture, generally deregulated states are more expensive. California, Texas, other states on the East Coast that have deregulated, they're generally, the cost of the electricity is more than for regulated states for a number of different reasons. The analysis and the testimony that we received from a gentleman that was a member of the FERC for a while, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. He was also a North Dakota Public Service Commissioner. Studied it extensively, and the information that he had was deregulated states, for the most part, are more expensive and have other issues with reliability and I think Representative Riggins, or maybe Campbell, sorry, Representative Campbell was asking about if customers have a problem with or a complaint, who does that go to? And there's been some record of customer complaints that just they don't really have anybody to go to because it's deregulated. The system that we have now, we would argue, is working very well. As was pointed out earlier, Wyoming has some of the lowest cost electricity in the country. I haven't looked lately, but I think we're in the top 10 for as far as low pricing. We also are proud at Black Hills. We're in the top quartile for reliability in the nation. So we would argue that things are working fairly well. So the Choice Electric and whether it's a deregulated kind of topic or even getting into people selecting what sort of energy they want, if it's from coal, gas, whatever, those are all topics that would really need a lot of study and a lot of consideration for us to make sure that it's going to be the best for our customers. Choice Gas is a program that we administer, as Commissioner Petrie said. It's in certain parts of our service territory. It's not in Cheyenne where I live, so I'm not as familiar with how the choice works. I know some people love it. Senator Case has said he really appreciates it and thinks it's a good system. We've had others who said they don't like it as much. We were looking at doing it in Cheyenne a couple of years ago and basically asked not to do that. So there's a lot of nuances in there as well. The Choice Gas program does offer choice for you to decide who you want to get your natural gas from. The system is all run by us. So you could have McEwen Gas LLC that you buy your gas from, but it comes down Black Hills Energy's pipes to your home. And the contracts are just different depending on who you decide to go with. Black Hills is one of the providers that's also a choice that you can make. So like I said, it's a different system than potentially what the Choice Electric program would look at, because right now the electric, at least the way we run our system, we have the ability to pull the least cost electricity from different pieces and parts of our system, whether it's market purchases. Sometimes there's cheap renewables that'll get dumped on the energy grid because it's a low cost. There's a lot of it that it's flooded the market. So there's a lower cost for that. So we can pull that in. Our natural gas or our coal might be the best. We can kind of move things around. The questions have come up from our folks. If someone chooses that they want renewables only, does that then obligate us to provide natural gas service to them if there's no renewables available to serve them? I mean, there's just a lot of questions on how that would work, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So it's at this point, we have real, I guess, reservations about whether or not that bill would work in the best interest of customers.
I made a joke tongue in cheek about beige electrons. But in all seriousness, if you were to separate it out, wouldn't you have to have separate lines?
Mr. Chairman, you would, yes. That's my understanding. I'm not an engineer. There's maybe some other people that can correct me on that, but I don't think you can send all those different electrons down the line. I couldn't ensure that you got coal-fired power and Senator Ide got renewables next door to you on the same line, and Representative Lean got natural gas on, next to him on that same line. It would be an accounting and billing process more than anything, but the electrons are the electrons for the most part, unless you are on a net metering system where your solar panels or your mini wind turbine are feeding your house, or in the case of some other systems where you're islanded and on your own renewables or your own server like that. So.
Co-Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Bush, for discussing this. Just real quickly, at least from the kind of the original bringer of the Choice Electric, had nothing to do with color of the electrons. It was just more of the concept of choice gas. They were just trying to get to the bottom of, is this something to consider? And quite frankly, it's a competitive issue, right? And that was what that topic was most. But question for you, because you brought up an important point, which is generally the studies have shown that the choice options are more expensive. Do you have, or have you ever taken a look and have any evidence that shows, hey, for example, choice gas is causing higher prices than it would be if we took a similar approach with gas? Has there ever been studies? Do you have any information that might relate to that? Because I'd be curious. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Locke, I can certainly ask our folks if they have. That's the regulatory team for us is the one that really deals with that in front of the Public Service Commission. I don't know, maybe Mr. Ornelas with the Office of Consumer Advocate knows that, but I don't know if I have that information, but I can certainly ask and see what it would look like for that. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Case.
I use a lot of gas in my business, and I work very hard at choosing my gas supplier. I also have some specific attributes in that my business has an interesting load factor that doesn't conflict. And so suppliers are willing to talk to me. I've gone through all the suppliers in the choice gas thing, and there are various differences. The one you mentioned, community gas, we talked about that one earlier. That's actually one of the most expensive ones because they reach out and they do other social goals in the process. There are some that are just commodity, and a real driver in the price that you pay is whether you're willing to go at a fully market rate or a fixed rate, where your price per unit is guaranteed over the course of a year. And there are blends in between, and some people buy some gas one way and some buy the other. I typically go with the market if I think that market factors are good. It was a great choice this year because gas prices, it was a great year to buy gas in the winter. But I would say there's a lot of benefit to a lot of customers in the program. Some pay extra because they're committing to social goals, like with community gas. And there are other aspects of it too. Some have rebate programs. It's very complicated. There would be administrative costs that would be saved if we got rid of it, for sure. But I certainly value the program, and that's not a reason to, your question about whether there are net benefits or not, it's a decent question.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would assume that there has been analysis done by either the Public Service Commission or the Office of Consumer Advocate that potentially could shed some light on. I think what your question is, Co-Chairman Locke, on just how the pricing differentiates and how the breakdown is on that. It does, and again, I'm not a regulated or regulatory expert, but the way it's been explained to me is our system, because of how the electric system, everyone is buying into it, the costs are spread out more evenly. So everyone is contributing to the cost of the poles, the wires, the generation, the linemen to go out and fix things, all the stuff that Mr. Ornelas talked about that's built into those rates. It's generally been a better system for most states, especially smaller states like ours that has a smaller population, to maintain that regulated scenario where we have to go in front of the Public Service Commission to justify any expenses or costs that we incur. So it does provide that opportunity for them to review everything and make sure that we're doing things right for our customers and ensure that the system is reliable and as affordable as possible. So,
Representative Riggins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just thinking about how it would be distributed, not through the system, but, you purchase natural gas by the therm. And so I assume we'd be purchasing electricity by the kilowatt hour. And those come from all types of sources, where a therm is a specific unit of measure, and it's the same wherever you buy it. And doesn't matter who generates it. And then another aspect of it, we have an example what the regulated pass-through rate is still a component of the choice gas program, and history may demonstrate that has been a pretty reasonable price historically, and so I'm not thrilled, having worked for the company that began that program, and people forget. It didn't really turn out as they planned. They had hoped a company that was south of us in the market area would sign on as well, so we would have access to their customers. Well, nobody else signed on that had a lot of customers. So, but we were stuck with it by then. So when I say we, retired we is what I mean. So don't mistake it, not there anymore, but a little bit of the history of that program, how it came to be, and then what resulted. So that was all, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you for your testimony. One other quick question. Sorry. Uh-oh.
He does this on purpose. It's good.
I was almost out.
That's the first time I did it. So when you guys sell the gas to the choice providers, right?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I follow your question there. So we distribute the gas.
Right.
So if someone chooses a different party to provide that gas than us, like I said, Black Hills Wyoming Gas is also a provider of the gas. If someone chooses Wyoming Community Gas, it's just a billing administrative issue at that point, where the bill is negotiated between that customer and that company, and we're just moving the gas down the line.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I answered it or.
I didn't know if you were wholesaling the gas to the other companies or if you're on the same market they are.
My understanding, Mr. Chairman, is we're on the same market. We're getting our gas. We don't do the production side anymore. We got out of that years ago. So we get our gas from the market.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you get out of the hot seat, Mr. Bush, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We heard a little bit from the Public Service Commission about Rocky Mountain Power's net metering customers and how many they serve and how much they have for that along the lines of net metering. Could you tell me how many people are attached to Black Hills that do net metering? Do you know that information?
I may have some old, Mr. Chairman, I may have some old numbers. I did ask for an updated number, but I haven't gotten that yet. And I know it was increasing over the past several years. Cheyenne has seen a lot of door knockers lately, people that door-to-door sales. They knock on your door and ask for your business that way. I'm not sure what our numbers are, but I can get them to you. If I can't find them quickly, let's see. I can give you 2024 numbers. We had 1,193, and I'm sure that's gone up significantly since then. Although now that the federal subsidies have been reduced or completely done away with, it may not be growing as fast. And we've had a couple of companies. My father-in-law bought solar panels for his house a few years ago, and we just had to replace the roof on his house after some hail damage. The company that put the solar panels on is no longer in business. So our contractor spent some time trying to find somebody else that could come and pull the panels off, because it has to be done by a certified electrician, a certified company. So it took a little while to get that done, because there wasn't as many companies out there that as there was a few years ago. So I think it's been harder now that those federal programs and other things have gone away.
Co-Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad we're back on net metering, actually, and I think this was talked about just a little bit by Senator Case and possibly Mr. Cornelius. But question for you is, so one of the topics came up that you pay the net meter customers at retail. And so this was one of the topics that I've heard mentioned by providers that say, hey, we're buying that. That is actually increasing costs, because you're still managing moving those electrons around at the same time, but theoretically you're paying out at that higher rate. And I guess I'm trying to really truly, is that driven by statute? You have to pay retail for that? Because that really, I do understand that and how much it's impacting you. Can you talk to that just a little bit? How much that impacts the rate overall? Because basically we're being forced to buy expensive electrons, I think is what's happening. And so we're helping a person here, but truthfully, we are buying electrons way higher than we would expect. At least that's my understanding of this problem. And I just wanted to understand it just a little tiny bit better, but I don't have to go too long, but a little help is appreciated.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Locke. We can definitely go long on net metering, days and days and days, I'm sure. And Representative Lean, somebody is watching back home, and they said just under 1,600 net metering customers for us as of 2025. Yeah, so we were 2024, we were at 1,123, I think I said. So about 10. But it went like this. Yes, ma'am. So Co-Chairman Locke, yeah, the net metering, the rates is laid out in statute. To my knowledge, it's the only rate that is codified in statute. The rest of the time, the way that we do the rate making process is with the Public Service Commission. There are general guidelines on how you do all that, but as far as laying out in statute how much you were going to pay, it's laid out, and I don't have the statute citation in my head, but it is the retail rate. So what that does then is it removes the net metering customers from spend or contributing as much to the overall system costs as other customers because their rates, we're basically zeroing out their rates when you give them that retail cost, and included in the rate is part of the cost for the system that they're no longer paying for, if that makes sense. I'm probably not explaining it very well, sir. I'm sorry, but it's if you spend 10 cents a kilowatt, inside that 10 cents a kilowatt is our price of energy, as well as some of the costs for the infrastructure and everything else, and then as well as the fixed cost. So then when you give that person back that 10 cents for the power that they're producing, you're not only covering the cost of the energy, which maybe is say 5 cents, but then you're crediting them for the cost of the infrastructure that they're now not paying for, but they're still using, unless they're on an island and they have their own battery backup. Some people will do that. Like you may have a cabin in the woods or something like that where you have solar panels and a battery because you're not hooked up to the grid. You're not technically a net metering customer at that point. So you're not shifting any cost to other customers then. The way the current net metering in Wyoming works is it does shift some of that cost to other customers. And as it continues to grow, that cost shift continues to grow more and more towards other customers. So. I'm going to try to get up one more time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, we did have a few people sign up online for the net metering topic from the Wyoming Outdoor Council as well.
We'll bring them in after this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Nathan Nicholas. I'm attorney at Cook Law here on behalf of Rocky Mountain Power. I have to initially apologize. Our understanding as well was that the electric choice was choice of fuels that you could buy from the incumbent utility rather than what I would classify as retail deregulation. I think I echo everything that
I think it was 2 years ago that we did look at the flavor of electrons, and now this is kind of looks like the same thing, but it's not.
Yeah, certainly. And just so I echo everything that Mr. Bush said, he covered it better than I did. I think than I will. I think some additional color helps explain the challenges that we have when you compare gas to electric. Gas is storable, and there's currently a commodity exchange for natural gas. So an arbitrage opportunity exists for natural gas purchasers to buy gas when it's lower and then pass those savings on to the consumer. Electric is not storable unless you have complex and very expensive battery storage. So when a utility generates that power, it has to go somewhere or it's wasted. And there's a third party can't currently walk into what we heard about the EDAM, the extended day ahead market that Rocky Mountain Power is a member of. Now, a third party cannot go onto that market and buy electricity and sell it retail to anyone. That's currently the incumbent utilities buying and selling their electric and predicting rates for future needs on their service territory. So there's some market and structural issues that would take years to sort out before a electric choice on what I would call a retail deregulation would be even possible. And I think, as you heard from Mr. Ornelas, that base rate, that's constant base rate that you see is going to have to grow substantially because you no longer have the ability to spread infrastructure costs across large industrial customers as opposed to those smaller individual consumers. As it comes to fuel choice, it also creates an issue that the utilities are currently balancing current need because, again, you can't store electricity. So they're balancing current need with where the generation is coming from, whether it's wind, solar, or the base load that we appreciate here, coal and natural gas. So when you have someone buying, if you gave consumers the opportunity to buy green energy, which only green, which I think I share the concerns here is why someone would do that. There's no guarantee that they could only get wind power. And it starts to throw the balance of the grid off when a utility is obligated to balance loads or balance generation with wind as opposed to base load. And they start playing with that, and it throws the grid balance off in that aspect too. It really becomes an accounting issue where you bill someone more for green energy, even though they may not be getting green energy, and the alternative issue could be, which is a very distant could, is that there's less base load than people are paying for. And so then people are actually getting wind and solar power. So those are just some issues. The grid doesn't quite work in a way where it discriminates where the electrons come from, as was touched earlier. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You know, his family. He's a bright kid. You know his grandma.
Is there anybody else? At this time, I think we'll call him Mrs. Huxtable? Yes. Ms. Huxtable.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Dixie Huxtable, Converse County Assessor, and I have with me my colleague from Laramie County. And earlier you had talked about property taxation for independent power producers, wind, solar, and data centers. So I wanted to just answer any questions that you had posed about what we do as far as approaches and or classifications. And specifically, I'll start off with the independent power producers, wind and solar, as I'm most familiar with those. I don't have data centers yet, so I'll leave that to my colleague to talk about. But just like any other property in Wyoming and that we do, we consider all three approaches to value, whether it's us or our third-party appraisers. That's what we do. So there's cost, market, and income approach. And as you can imagine, with a limited number of market sales, arm length sales, these types of properties don't usually have much of a market approach to reconcile. So in the reconciliation process, we're looking at cost and income approaches. And like any other income producing property, when something's first built, usually you rely on cost approach because that's what you have the data for. As the property, the life progresses, then you start reconciling income in. So that's kind of the approaches that we use, just like we do on any other property. As far as classification, both solar and wind, to our knowledge and statewide, is industrial. And we are taxing the assets of the company that has those facilities. And in most cases, if not all, those are personal property assets. So specifically in a wind farm, you're talking about the turbines, the lines the power lines that connect to the turbines, maybe some building structures for the operations and maintenance. But in all cases, at least in my county, for independent power producers, that land is leased. Okay, they do not own the land. And the values that we put on it are based on just the assets. The solar farm is a little bit different that I'm aware of in the southwestern part of the state because it's on a BLM land. And so it's federal land, it's exempt, it's not taxed. The facility is taxed as industrial, but the land itself is not. In my county, all the land is leased, or the one wind farm that is taxed by the state of Wyoming, that land is included that they own in the value. And as Administrator Gill talked about, they capitalize the lease payment for that land, but they're using the lease payment that may or may not include other things. I'm not sure. I'm not privy to those appraisals, so I'm not sure what's included in that lease payment. but it could include all the land that was potentially going to be leased or was leased originally in the contract, not necessarily the footprint only of where that wind farm is sitting. So there is differences. They do that because the state statute tells them to do that, that leased property shall be treated as if owned. Locally assessed is not that way. We tax it based on ownership and use. Therefore, the land underneath that is owned by a different individual and is used, typically in my case, it's used for agricultural. And certainly I can show you abundant amount of pictures where there's cattle grazing in and around and laying next to the wind turbine. So that is what happens in my county, and I will defer to my colleague to talk about Laramie County unless you have any questions for me specifically.
Just one quick one.
Sure.
If I want a tax-free bowling alley or gas station, would I build it on that solar farm? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Cinder, no, it would not be tax exempt. Just like the land is not tax exempt, it's taxed, just a different classification.
Well, we had a discussion over that too. Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Huxtable. Does depreciation play a role at all in wind turbine and solar panel assessments?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Riggins, absolutely. When you're looking at the cost approach, absolutely you're looking at depreciation, the life of the asset and the economic life of it, the obsolescence of it, what other factors would go into it, just like we would on any other property. So yes, depreciation does play into it. Of course, as you get to an income approach, then you start reconciling a little bit different. You're looking at the income of that facility and doing a little different approach, but you're still reconciling those two approaches together. And so depreciation does play a factor. Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Chairman, I'm Todd Ernst, Laramie County Assessor. Here, basically agreeing most part with Dixie that under our wind turbines, they do lease the land out and they are grazing cattle there. Our solar farms, they can't graze under them. And in fact, as I toured our solar farm, they absolutely said no critters will be inside the solar area because it'll just rub and tear up all the wiring and stuff. So under our solar farms, it is industrial land. And for our data centers, right now, all of our data centers, as Mr. Gill talked about earlier, we have them as commercial, not industrial, because again, my opinion, they're not really raw materials coming out with a different product. So we do have those commercial, and obviously the land underneath them are commercials. I'll stand for any questions.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ernest, thank you for being here. So on the wind projects where there's wind turbines, being that they're leased, it's leased land from ranchers in most cases. They graze cattle on part of that land, but they don't graze cattle on all of it because they have the infrastructure of the roads, and those roads are dirt. They're not grass. They can't graze dirt. And the footprint of the turbines take up quite a bit of land. So in theory, we could create a portion of that land into industrial land. Because as I say, they can't graze dirt. So do you see a problem with us doing something like that?
Chairman, Representative Brown, obviously you guys can work on that and look at ways if you want to. We did some calculation a little earlier, 66 wind turbine footprints, figuring out what circumference of each one of those footprints. We're looking at 0.38 acres for 66 wind turbines. So it's really not a lot of land that they are encompassing on those turbines. And then as far as the roads, again, that would be your discretion how you want to do that. But I think to be fair with all the other industry out there, oil and gas, then we got to start looking at all the roads going to all the pumps, to all the pads, to all that are also on agricultural land of the rancher where those oils are at. So I think that's something obviously you guys can look at and take in consideration. But I think if we do it for one, we'd have to do it for all the other industrial companies out there.
Anything else, Ms. Huxtable?
Mr. Chairman, no, I just, it was interesting to us to start looking at that footprint because it is really small until you start adding the land in, because those are not real big bases on the bottom of those turbines when you actually start looking at the circumference. And I will confess, I didn't do the math. I let my computer do the math. But it was a small amount of acreage until you start adding in that land. And my colleague is absolutely correct. I start looking at the roads in my county that are going to oil and gas facilities, coal mine facilities, uranium facilities, water disposal facilities. All of those would, in my opinion, would then have to be calculated and taken back out of agriculture as well and put into industrial, which certainly we can do, but bear in mind that that's another step that we would have to take and another impact to your ranchers that maybe they weren't anticipating either.
Well, thank you for being patient with me today. We're a little late getting you in.
Mr. Chairman, we do have John Burrows online to provide public testimony on net metering.
Please bring him in.
He is online now.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. My name is John Burrows, and I'm with the Wyoming Outdoor Council, and wanted to just share some updates on kind of net metering. We know this has been a topic of legislative priority for about 10 years now, since I believe 2016, and I think we've seen something like 9 bills over that period of time. I think it's been in 3 different committees, give or take. And we know that there's just a lot of interest around this topic statewide. I think 2025 was a particularly tough debate year around net metering. 2 different net metering bills that are kind of going in different directions. And there's a lot of energy expended in those discussions and that debate. And after the end of that, when there was no legislation passed, a number of net metering advocates, including the Wyoming Outdoor Council and a number of other groups, as well as a number of utilities, got together and did start to talk about maybe a different alternative path where we could have third-party facilitated discussion around agreements in principle to net metering. And I just wanted to report to the committee that we are starting those conversations with third-party Sarah Flintner Strategies out of Jackson, starting to convene different groups, different stakeholders in this discussion to talk about, again, what could be some agreements in principle and common ground on the topic that, again, has taken a lot of time and energy from various legislative committees over the last decade, really. So that process is underway this summer. We hope to have some of those agreements in principle by the fall. And again, if they are productive, and hopefully that's something and a positive thing that we would be excited to share with you all on this committee and those legislators interested in working on this topic down the road in the future. So happy to stand for any questions on that, but just wanted to provide that update for you all as this was a topic and one that we actually weren't expecting to see necessarily for this committee.
Questions? Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman.
Eve, we have anybody else? Well, we'll close public comment. Any discussions on any optional electric tax stuff?
Mr. Chairman, I misspoke. There is one other person who just raised their hand for public comment. Did you want me to admit them at this time?
Yes, we'll go back into public comment.
They should be online now.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for the delay. I was confused if we were speaking on net metering or more generally on the other topics. Is this an okay time to speak to what the assessors mentioned?
Yes, that would be fine.
Thank you, sir. Era Arano with Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, and have been following along. Appreciate the talk about lower residential property taxes and all that we've heard from different folks today. All of the family farmers and ranchers that we represent across 3 states are already pinched. I'm sure you've heard about all of the rising fertilizer prices, diesel prices, the challenges to our markets. And we're very concerned about the potential change in valuation and taxation for folks who've chosen to help really keep their bottom lines stable and keep working lands working so they can pass the farm or the ranch on to other folks through the opportunity to lease out some of that land for energy, be it wind, oil and gas rigs, things like that. And we're very concerned that the valuation may change, and that could increase tax burdens by upward of 20, 30, 40%, depending on what that is, and really lead to an increase in the bankruptcies that we're already seeing nationally, which are at high levels. So would hope that you'd keep ag lands valued at that production rate. And thank you for your time. Stand for any questions.
Questions? We do have 4 separate options we're looking at this year to at least, if not lower them, keep them locked in to a certain place. So hopefully we're successful with that and help you all out.
Thank you very much.
That was the last online public comment. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's just do a quick recap. What do you have, Josh?
So, Mr. Chairman, for today so far, we have a few data requests that we'll be bringing back to the committee. I don't think we have any bill drafts so far today, and stand ready to accept those, Mr. Chairman, if there are any from the committee.
We will probably carve out some time in the next committee meeting to talk about the electricity taxing options. So center case, I would ask you to have some more ideas kind of whittled down other than what we could do. Tell me what you think we should do.
Okay, sir.
You mind?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, and we'll hit a little more on the commercial next meeting too. And we might have another session on Amendment A, but I think we have that, don't we? Or House Bill 1931.
Mr. Chairman, we did have a bill draft request yesterday on Amendment A, so that one will be coming back.
Great. Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is now a good time for this committee to ask for a bill draft?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask for a bill draft for 3911-101A to include data centers as industrial.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That definitely passed. Anything else? Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In our last interim, we drafted a bill that was electricity from solar and nuclear resources taxation. That turned out to be House Bill 46. I would like to have, make a motion that LSO redraft that bill as is.
We have a second? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it again. Any last bit of business? All righty. See if I can do this without messing up. We'll adjourn.